What's up, guys? We are back again. I really have been thinking since yesterday when I posted that video, or however long it takes for this one to come out, what's the real intention behind me actually posting these videos? It seems a little bit pretentious, and I'm kind of asking myself, what does it matter if I post it? What part of me inside is wanting to have this shared? Is it a real sense of wanting a connection? Do I want to feel like I'm not so alone in this? Am I am I really kind of boasting some knowledge? Is it the kind of teacher inside me that's wanting to share and help others? I I am I looking to be validated in my feelings? I really don't know. And it's kind of bugging me a little bit, but that's a side note. Last session was actually very interesting for me, and I have been meditating a little bit over what I said, what I revealed, what I learned. And I've been doing a little bit more digging. I went to Starbucks and I sat down to try and find really the root of that of what I spoke about last session about that decision making independence. And what I kind of settled on, and I'm looking at my notes down here, what I kind of settled on was the kind of things I was told as a kid specifically and by who specifically. So from my dad, he is a very like typical father, typical dad. He is a little bit like what I say kind of goes, and he might ask you a question and you might answer that question, and he might tell you how his way of doing something or his way of thinking about something is better, which is fine. There's no kind of like malintent behind that. But I think maybe as a kid, what I learned is that it's not really a very safe space to kind of express myself because the words that I say and the feelings and thoughts that I do share aren't being considered as much as I needed as a child, and they're not being thought about as much as I needed as a child, really. So I kind of learned to not really voice my opinion, and it's it kind of manifests and evolve into not sharing my ideas, to not expressing what I'm going to do for myself. Because if you've asked me a question and I answer a question and it's not quite right, when it comes down to me thinking about my life that I know I have a certain level of autonomy over, it doesn't it's not going to come natural for me to ask for your input and ask for your advice when I've learned previously that when I have expressed myself, it hasn't been received and considered and really held in a way that I needed to. So that's what I really learned, I think, from my dad and from my mom. I think what I learned, my mom, I remember specifically, although both my parents would have done this, is that she really praised me for my independence. And I remember my mom being like really proud of me that I was a very independent kid and that she was so proud that I could just kind of go up to like central London for the day and I would have everything and I would be prepared. And I remember feeling a real sense of pride in that. And maybe that's where I felt a bit of a sense of pride in being independent and being fully autonomous and having my own autonomy, making my own decisions for myself. And because I was put in situations as well, where I was encouraged to be in situations where I did have to make my own decisions. For example, when I was a young teenager, being kind of given free rein and trust to be out the house, going up to central London, kind of running around central London, it just reinforces that idea in my head that independence is good. And when I make decisions and when I behave in a way that is independent, it's rewarded. Hence the lovely compliments from my mum, who I love very much. But through both what my mum has said and my dad has said, and that's just one example, it would have obviously been thousands and thousands of things that kind of have been said that go into my brain and kind of rewire the brain a little bit. What I also remember significantly feeling as a child and kind of witnessing is the kind of mutual overwhelm as such of my parents. I would in their marriage, but in the family as a whole. And it's obviously not uncommon thing to have happen, like both parents experiencing hardships, whether it's in their relationship, whether it's having different opinions in how to raise their children, whether it's, whatever it might be. But I do remember distinctly as a child seeing my parents at times feeling overwhelmed. And it was always natural for me, or maybe it was just one of those kind of intuition things, which is for me to not voice my opinion and for me to not voice myself because I didn't want to add to that overwhelm. I didn't want to add to those feelings and I didn't want to feel a burden on their marriage and to the family. So I kind of keep whatever I wanted to say, keep my thoughts inside, and any problem that I found myself having, I would sit on that by myself. And I wouldn't tell my parents a lot of the time. And that's what I needed to do. That was my mechanism to kind of survive in that time. And it's it's a good thing. I'm proud of that skill. I'm proud that I do have the skills and tools needed to be able to solve my own issues. But now I'm becoming aware, and I have been aware that making the decision or just falling on my natural process to really solve all of my problems by myself, as much as I'm able to do that, and it was needed as a child, as an adult, you're putting up a wall there, and you're not giving other people the opportunity to connect with you in a way that would really strengthen the relationship. And what I've come to also realize is that I have this kind of obsessive way of wanting to optimize the way I experience the world. And in some situations that can be a good thing, like trying to find the best deal on something. I can definitely see how that could be beneficial and a beneficial way of thinking. But when it comes to a lot more of the softer side of life and the kind of less objective experiences, such as human connection, I'm still trying to optimize. So in my head, my thought process might be why should I seek out help when I know that if I save that energy and put that energy inside myself, I will find the answer and I will come to the conclusion. You know? I will kind of save myself because that's the way it's always been. Whenever I've had a problem when I was younger, I thought about the problem and I'd find the answers. I didn't really need anyone. But now, as an adult, you have to kind of start to realize that it's not necessarily that you can solve the problem by yourself, which is why you always should, but you can actually invite people into your thought process and invite people in to help solve this problem, partly for the sake of just keeping that connection. And that's really an important part of relationships that I'm learning to value some more. And there are benefits to that. It's not just about solving the problem and getting to a very end final answer. It's also about the journey. And if you can strengthen the relationship, if you can build trust, if you can build partnership, and if you can build a connection through that journey, that is that is also, if not more valuable sometimes than getting to the actual final destination by yourself. So that's how I think it kind of translates from childhood into adulthood. And I wrote down here, sometimes I put like a little asterisk next and I said, I sometimes struggle to ask my partner for support because my nervous system interprets the need for support as being too much. And that is an interesting take. That's a hot take for me, right? I'm needing support as an adult, but as a child, whenever I needed support, I didn't want to add to the burden of my parents, and so I turned inward and solved and supported myself. And now as an adult, I'm expected to, when I need support, ask for support. I don't know, something to think about, but that was just the part two of my kind of internal exploration, specifically, excuse me, specifically about the root of this decision-making independence. And I wanted this to just be 10 minutes, so apologies if I'm taking a bit too long to talk about things. But I also wanted to, and I felt like it was important for me whilst I'm kind of exploring, was to really highlight some of the strengths of my avoidant attachments as well, because we form attachments based on the situations and circumstances we experienced as a child. They were a way for us to really get through our situations. And we learned these skills as a way to survive and as a way to overcome. And if you look at it just out of a context, some of the skills are very, very good skills. And some of the behaviors I exhibit that are kind of avoidant are very beneficial to me, and they're beneficial to other people sometimes. And one of the things that I wanted to highlight for myself and for anyone else who is potentially thinking about their avoidant tendencies as just a purely negative thing. One real benefit of being avoidantly attached is you have this power of kind of emotional distance. And I'll just read a little bit here from my journal that I've been writing in. I wrote down, I can help myself. I can keep myself calm and logical in different environments or emotional chaos. With this avoidance skill of emotional regulation, I can bring stability. I can manage mine and others' intense emotions. And by having emotional space between myself and the situation, means that I can provide an objective perspective, um, providing advice and identifying practical solutions. And you know what? I'm really proud of myself for this skill. I really do have a lot of distance between myself and situations. And I've learned this throughout the years through a lot of reading, I do think, and just a lot of trying to understand myself and the way that I react to things. I'm able to really put a lot of mental distance between myself and a situation so that I can approach the situation from the most logical standpoint and really be solution focused rather than acting on my natural instinct to react to a situation. Right? Just a very simple example. Imagine I had a glass of milk and I spilled the glass of milk all over the counter. Your initial reaction is to kind of just maybe scream or get a bit frustrated, like, oh my days, what the hell? What am I doing? Yada, yada, yada. I got to clean all this up now. Okay, fair enough. You can go through all those emotions and feel it, but at the end of the day, you're going to have to clean up that milk regardless. And it's not to say that going through that motion is not important. It is important if you feel like you have to get it out. Uh, but I provide space between that emotion and between myself. And once the situation has happened and I can see it's happened, my brain is thinking about how can I resolve this? What's the best way to move forward from here, given that what's done is done? And that's a great skill to have. Um, that's a really great skill to have. And it's a real positive of being an independent person, I think, and being slightly avoidant, at least for me. At least for me. I also wrote down here that one positive of my independence is that I meet my own needs the majority of the time, and so I don't drain others for reassurance or validation, and I bring a lot of capability into relationships. And how I mentioned earlier about being a child and having that flow through into adulthood, I don't want to be a burden to other people. That can definitely be restricting on the relationship, and it can prevent a real connection, and it can prevent two people from approaching a problem together and strengthening their bond by solving that problem together. But it also means I'm a very capable individual by myself, and I'm very capable at uh, how can I really describe it? What I wrote down here, at meeting my own needs, and I won't be seeking or needing constant reassurance or assurance in our relationship as such, in my relationships, because I can do a lot of it by myself, and that's a good thing. That is a good thing, and I'm really happy that I am that way. And I'm confident in my own identity, my own sense of self, and my own body for me to be able to do that. And I am proud of that. But just to highlight that, there are kind of two sides of the same coin here. And where I notice my avoidant attachment behaviors I'm wanting to fix or kind of overcome, not fix, but overcome to a certain extent, there are behaviors that I'm very, very happy that I do have. And I wrote down here, I think the overall goal is to really appreciate the strengths of my avoidant attachment, whilst also recognizing the need for internal work towards interdependence and not codependence, interdependence. Codependence, for me, my definition is kind of just you really need this other person. You are completely dependent on them in some aspects of yourself. You need them for you to feel like you. But interdependence is two people as a whole coming together in a little bit of a dance, right? Like how two people would dance together. And although you're moving as a single item or a single unit, you're also having your own steps and you're moving your own shoulders and you're bringing your own little flair and swag to the dance. You know what I mean? But hey, that's what I was just thinking about for today and for the next segment into kind of unpacking my avoidant attachment so I can be better in my relationships with people. So I hope this was interesting to anyone listening. And for myself to look back on this a bit later, I hope I can remember this. Sometimes I learn, sometimes I teach, and then sometimes I just forget and it goes out my head, and that's my ADHD tendency coming in. It's here sometimes and then sometimes it's out over here, and I need that to just kind of stay very close. But hey ho, thank you for listening, thank you for watching. My voice is going a little bit, so I'm going to grab some water. um yeah, I'm going to catch you in the next one where I'll mention very briefly and I'll circle back to some emotional triggers. And I also made some new notes about parentification and the effect that that has on adult relationships. But I'll dive more into that on the next video. So, see you in the next one. Bye everyone. Love you.